Trust is a delicate bond forged over time, strengthened by shared experiences, and yet so easily shattered by deceit. What happens when a symbol of justice and trust, a figure loved and respected by the community, becomes a symbol of abuse and murder? What happens when years of friendship and love is broken by a sick and forbidden desire and turned into a gruesome murder? And how far will a public officer go to hide her shame? Welcome to another edition of True Crime Family Stories. Today we'll be narrating the ordeal that broke into pieces the life of Cassandra Moore. This is the story of two families intertwined by friendship and faith, only to be torn apart by lust and a secret that would change the fate of their lives forever. Cassandra Moore was a respected detective in a small town, admired not only for her dedication to the job, but also for integrity. Several years ago, she'd saved the lives of 6 teenagers who were abducted. This earned her the love and respect of everyone around her. At 48, Cassandra seemed to have it all: a loving husband, Marcus, who was a devoted high school teacher, and a teenage son, Jalen, who adored her. Together they appeared like the ideal of a wholesome, supportive family. But little did they know that Cassandra was a horror waiting to unfold. Evelyn Carter shared much of her life with Cassandra Moore. As Cassandra's partner in law enforcement, Evelyn had fought by her side in the most challenging of circumstances. Their bond went beyond their professional duties, blossoming into a deep friendship that made their families inseparable. Evelyn Carter, a single mother to 16-year-old Ryan, often struggled with the guilt of her failed marriage. She carried the weight of her responsibilities with grace, pouring her energy into raising her shy, artistic son, Ryan, without the presence of a father. Ryan, despite his quiet demeanor, had a deep respect for her mother's best friend, Cassandra, admiring her as a role model and a figure of strength in his life. Their families were close. Birthdays, holidays, and countless weekend dinners were spent together, filled with laughter and shared memories. Ryan and Jalen, though different in personality, were as close as brothers. Ryan often saw in Cassandra the guidance and encouragement he longed for from his own mother, whose career and personal struggles left her less available than she wanted to be. Evelyn loved her son deeply, but was often at odds with his aspirations. Ryan dreamed of becoming a law enforcement officer, inspired by the very career that had shaped his mother's and Cassandra's lives. But Evelyn, hardened by years in the force, discouraged him. She wanted something better for him, something less dangerous and all-consuming, like her own choice of career. Because of this, she didn't entertain Ryan's dreams. It was this void, Ryan's yearning for approval and understanding, that made him turn to Cassandra for support. On a certain sunny Wednesday, things changed forever in the life of Ryan when he paid his mother a visit at work. It was a day like every other day. Ryan would come to wait for Evelyn in the waiting room or take a stroll in the field outside the police division. But on this day, as he arrived, Evelyn was not in her office. She'd gone for a patrol downtown. Ryan sat at the entrance, looking at the officers going about their business, and then he turned to leave. But before he could make his way out, Cassandra Moore appeared in the hallway. As a skilled detective, she could immediately tell that he was troubled. "Ryan," she called, her voice smooth and inviting. "Everything okay?" Ryan stopped. He was torn between wanting to avoid the embarrassing conversation of failing his fine art exams and accepting the inexplicable comfort Cassandra always seemed to provide with her encouraging words. After a moment, Ryan sighed. "I came to see Mom, but it seems she's not around. She went for patrol duties. But don't be a stranger. Come in." Ryan nodded meekly. He saw Cassandra as a second mother and trusted her completely. So he allowed her to guide him toward her personal office. "Talk to me," Cassandra urged, her voice low and soothing. She gestured for him to sit across from her. "What's going on?" Ryan let out a long breath. He wanted badly to share his troubles, and Cassandra was a fantastic listener. It's nothing. Just school stuff. School stuff can feel like the world when you're in it, Cassandra said gently, smiling at him. Come on, I'm here to help. What's really bothering you? Slowly he opened up, telling her about his doubts, his frustrations, and the pressure he felt from trying to meet everyone's expectations. He narrated how he was failing at fine arts class while everyone believed he would be the next Picasso. Cassandra listened intently, nodding at the right moments. Her eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made him feel seen and understood in a way he rarely experienced. "You're stronger than you think, Ryan," she said after he finished. "You've got so much potential, and I'm proud of you for even trying to figure this out. It's not easy." Ryan gave her a small, grateful smile. His mood was already beginning to lift. "Thanks, Mrs. Moore. It means a lot." As Ryan spoke, Cassandra found herself looking at him in a way she never had before. At first, it was subtle, her eyes lingering on the sharp line of his jaw, the way his lips moved as he spoke. But then she noticed more. She noticed things she never noticed before. The way his Adam's apple bobbed when he swallowed, the tousled mess of his dark hair, and the way his eyes held such wisdom and consciousness that seemed beyond his young age. She tried to dismiss it as an overactive imagination, or maybe the fact that she hadn't been with her husband for a few nights. But no matter how much she tried to deny it, her eyes kept lingering on Ryan's chiseled face. Ryan didn't look like the little boy he'd taken to preschool just a few years ago. He was not that kid with braces and curly hair. He had grown handsomely into teenagehood. His hands were large and strong, yet still youthful. His voice was a sexy baritone, and his teeth were perfect, with lips that looked soft enough to kiss. It was as if a switch had flipped in her mind, and suddenly, Ryan wasn't just the shy, artistic teenager she'd known for years. He was a man, handsome and desirable. Her pulse quickened as the realization hit her. This wasn't just admiration for a young man finding his way. It was something darker, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. "I've always wanted to be like Mum and you, but she won't approve." Ryan looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a vulnerability that made her feel special. In that moment, Cassandra knew what she wanted, and it terrified her as much as it thrilled her. Cassandra smiled. "Being a cop is hard work, but you're a brave boy. I know you can do it." Ryan, for the first time, felt heard. He felt understood. Cassandra wasn't like his mother, who never wanted him to be a cop. She saw his potential, and this drew him closer to her. That wasn't the only visit he made to the office in his mother's absence. No, Ryan began to visit Cassandra often in her personal office. They would talk about school, and she offered him insight into the law enforcement profession, promising to groom him into the admirable cop that she was. And so, a dark and enticing thought began to take root in Cassandra's mind. It didn't matter that she'd seen Ryan in diapers or had been Evelyn's babysitter once or twice. Cassandra stepped into the role of a mentor for Ryan effortlessly. She saw his potential and encouraged his ambitions when Evelyn would not. Their conversations grew frequent, filled with advice and reassurances that he could achieve his dreams of becoming a cop. Ryan found solace in her words, trusting her implicitly. But little did Ryan know that the older woman had plans for him that his own mother would not approve of. Cassandra Moore's involvement in Ryan's life deepened in ways that went unnoticed by those around them. She made him believe her mentorship was a secret he had to keep. From his mother, from his best friend, her own son, Jalen, and from everyone else around them. "They will never understand your ambition," she said. From talking late night at the office and offering to drop him off at school, Cassandra began inviting him to private discussions, urging him to confide in her about things he felt he couldn't tell his mother. She assured him that Evelyn wouldn't understand, further driving the naive young boy away from his loving mother. As the days rolled by, what began as mentorship soon took a darker turn. Cassandra's guidance became too comfortable and personal, and her encouragement manipulative. She positioned herself as the one person who truly understood Ryan, isolating him emotionally from others. Ryan, still young and naive, didn't question her intentions. For him, Cassandra was an authority figure, a trusted adult who had his best interests at heart. He couldn't see the boundaries that were being crossed, nor the danger that loomed ahead. Meanwhile, Evelyn remained unaware of the growing bond between her son and her best friend. She trusted Cassandra implicitly, never imagining that her closest ally could harbor ulterior motives. The trust between the two families, so deeply rooted, blinded them to Cassandra's unspeakable evil. Evelyn, preoccupied with her demanding job and her guilt over her perceived shortcomings as a mother, missed the warning signs. She confided in Cassandra about her worries over Ryan's poor grades in school, unknowingly giving her friend the tools to exploit the situation further. This marks the point in the story that examines that trust, once broken, can lead to unimaginable consequences, and the very bonds that hold us together can become the chains that destroy us. As time went on, Cassandra's presence in Ryan's life grew even more pronounced. She became his confidant, his mentor, and, increasingly, a figure he relied on more than anyone else. Private discussions at her home became more frequent. Ryan, eager for validation, welcomed the attention without question. He didn't notice the slow erosion of his independence, nor did he see how his trust was being exploited. To those on the outside, Cassandra appeared as nothing more than a devoted mentor, helping a young man chase his dreams. Evelyn noticed the sudden improvement in Ryan's life and was grateful for the change. Meanwhile, Marcus and Jalen, Cassandra's own family, thought nothing of Ryan's frequent visits, assuming them to be part of her natural role as a supportive friend. But Cassandra's motives were far from altruistic. Behind the closed doors of her home office, she began to push Ryan into situations that were far from appropriate. She would often offer him a massage to calm him and some wine or foot massage, a kiss on the cheek and forehead before he got home. What started as guidance on career choices morphed into deeply personal conversations. She inquired about his feelings, his insecurities, his sexuality, and his relationships at school. She painted herself as the only person who truly understood him, creating an emotional dependency that Ryan didn't recognize as harmful. It was during one of these private conversations that Cassandra crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Ryan had just had another poor grade and didn't know how to break the news to his mother without disappointing her. He called Cassandra and told her about his bad performance, and as the ever-caring mentor, she told him to drop by at her place before heading home. Ryan needed the comfort of her presence. He was already used to her charm and magic. She always knew what to say to make him better. However, when he arrived, the house wasn't as he had always recalled. Unknown to him, Cassandra had set a trap he couldn't resist. Jalen and Marcus were away for a family visit in the neighboring town, and she had the house all to herself. The house was quiet, and Ryan called out but heard nothing. Skeptical, he made his way to the bathroom and found Cassandra in the tub, unconscious. Ryan hurried to her side and tried to wake her, panicking. But Cassandra knew she had to play her cards right. She was naked beneath the water, and she pretended to be unconscious as she allowed the boy struggle to get her out of the tub and try to resuscitate her. Shortly before his panic got out of hand and he tried to call 911, she finally decided to wake up. At first, Ryan was relieved, and she blamed her sudden unconsciousness on stress. But when the life-threatening ruse was over, Ryan was suddenly nervous. He'd never seen a naked woman before, talk more of Cassandra Moore. He was sorry and begged her to forgive him. But Cassandra assured him everything was fine and urged him not to tell his mother anything that had happened. Shaken, Ryan left the house and said nothing to his family or his best friend. The days following were never the same between the two. Cassandra dressed in the most provocative moments and always made sure Ryan saw her in compromising positions. Until one stormy night, she made the innocent boy an offer he couldn't refuse. Still broken over his declining grades, Cassandra provided him comfort after she slipped a date rape pill into his drink. What started out as an innocent bottle of beer ended with Ryan in her bed, doing everything to him that she had always wanted to. Cassandra knew at once that she was obsessed with Ryan, and she could never get enough of him. Maybe it was his youthfulness, or perhaps her own vile and crude nature. Or maybe Cassandra Moore had always wanted more from her always busy and boring husband. It didn't matter. She had Ryan now. Ryan, naive and emotionally reliant on Cassandra, didn't see the situation for what it was. Instead, he interpreted her behavior as a sign of trust, of care. Cassandra didn't act awkward the next morning. He sent him off to school with some wads of cash and helped cover up for his absence by telling Evelyn he'd been studying with Jalen at her place. After his first experience, it was like Ryan had undergone a significant transformation, emerging with a newfound sense of confidence and self-assurance. His previously shy nature had given way to a more outgoing personality, and his self-esteem has soared. As a result, Ryan became more comfortable approaching women, including those he might have previously found intimidating, such as 16-year-old Lily Summers. He was now able to interact with his female classmates, including the ones he considered hot, with greater ease and confidence. However, Ryan's newfound focus on social interactions and relationships may be coming at the expense of his academic performance. His grades are slipping, suggesting that he may need to find a better balance between his social life and academic responsibilities. Ryan, now introduced to the world of attraction and lust, began to develop feelings for Lily, a pretty little redhead in his class, and at the same enjoyed spending time with Cassandra, mistaking her abuse for affection. To protect herself, Cassandra convinced Ryan to keep their interactions a secret. She told him that others wouldn't understand, that Evelyn, in particular, would misinterpret everything and ruin their bond. Ryan, desperate to maintain the connection he believed to be special, agreed without hesitation. She formed a pattern: pick him up from school, spend some steamy moments in her office bathroom, and drop him off afterward, completely drained and with promises of the next rendezvous. Ryan's relationship with Cassandra Moore had become routine and lost its excitement for him. He started to develop an interest in Lily, a younger girl in his age group, and saw the party as an opportunity to make a move. After drinking enough to feel tipsy and emboldened, he approached Lily and was able to convince her to join him in a private room. As teenagers often did, they acted on their impulses and made out, crossing a significant milestone for Ryan. This experience boosted his confidence and reputation, making him a sort of superstar among his peers. Ryan's life became a balancing act as he spent his days with Lily, attending football games, skating, and hanging out in her neighborhood. At the same time, he continued to maintain a secret relationship with Cassandra Moore, servicing her needs after school. Ryan was juggling multiple relationships and enjoying the attention and excitement that came with them. His double life was filled with intrigue and activity, and he became happy with the way things were going. Meanwhile, Evelyn began noticing subtle changes in her son's behavior. He grew more distant, more secretive. His once open demeanor was replaced with an air of distraction, as if he were carrying a burden too heavy to share. But when she shared it with Cassandra, she dismissed it as typical teenage behavior. Evelyn agreed, trusting that whatever was troubling him, he would come to her in time. Ryan continued his routine for about a month and a half, balancing his relationships with Lily and Cassandra Moore. However, his life took a dramatic turn when Lily started experiencing nausea and early morning sickness. She complained of stomach aches and overall body weakness, but advised against seeking medical attention at the hospital due to their underage status and the strict rules that came with it. Instead, they opted to purchase a pregnancy kit because the symptoms were too glaring, and Lily took the test. As they waited for the results, Ryan prayed fervently to God, asking him to spare him from this situation. He was convinced that God would answer his prayers. But 30 minutes later, the test revealed a positive result. Ryan's world was turned upside down as he struggled to come to terms with the fact that Lily was pregnant. While Ryan was battling with this reality, Cassandra had grown careless with her lustful desires. Then the unimaginable happened. Cassandra became pregnant as well. But this happened at a terrible time. Ryan was already detaching from her, and she could feel it. He didn't show up for their nightly meetings and didn't take her calls. Cassandra Moore knew she was losing his grip on her boy toy. Ryan's life was turned upside down by the news of Lily's pregnancy, and he felt overwhelmed and unsure of where to turn. Despite his recent distance from Cassandra, he still considered her a confidant and someone he could trust. He went to her, hoping to find some comfort and guidance in his time of need. Cassandra had noticed that Ryan had been pulling away from her, but she didn't know the reason behind it. He had been making excuses and telling lies to avoid seeing her as frequently as they used to. However, when he broke the news about Lily's pregnancy, Cassandra saw an opportunity to rekindle their relationship and win him back. She consoled Ryan, offering him a listening ear and a comforting presence. She then advised him to persuade Lily to have an abortion, warning him that if she didn't, his life would be ruined. Cassandra's motives were not entirely altruistic, as she hoped to use this situation to her advantage and regain her hold on Ryan. By presenting herself as a source of support and guidance, she aimed to re-establish her connection with him and potentially drive a wedge between him and Lily. And in more desperation, she struck again. She told Ryan about her pregnancy in a way that framed the situation as their shared responsibility. She played on his guilt, his sense of duty, and his emotional confusion. Ryan, overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, tried to process the gravity of what Cassandra had told him. He was a teenager, still grappling with the realities of life. How could he become a father of two from two different women? Lily, unaware of Ryan's entanglement with Cassandra, had no intention of taking the baby out. Ryan tried to share his concerns with Lily the same way Cassandra told him, but her response was far from that of an agreement. She refused to be persuaded by him, and even threatened to tell his mother of what they'd done together if he brought the topic up again. Lily wasn't just an afraid little girl. No, she wasn't going to lose her womb or get her life complicated because of a matured, consensual activity. She was ready to claim Ryan as her own. Cassandra, realizing the danger Lily posed, became desperate. The thought of her secret being exposed, of her career and family being destroyed, consumed her. She confronted Lily, hoping to intimidate her into silence, but Lily, determined to protect herself and her child, threatened to reveal everything to the town. The situation reached a breaking point, and Cassandra did the unthinkable. In a fit of desperation, she lured both Ryan and Lily to a secluded area under the pretense of resolving the conflict. What unfolded in that forest would change everything. Lily was fierce and opinionated. She refused to get rid of her baby despite Cassandra's offer of a few $1,000s and threatened to expose Cassandra and her secret affair with Ryan. Fueled by fear and rage, Cassandra decided to solve the problem her way. She stabbed Lily again and again and again, despite Ryan's cries. Cassandra only stepped back when she had ended Lily's life. With the bloody knife in hand and the little girl's lifeless face staring back at her, she realized what she'd done. Horrified, Ryan cried out in fear and tried to flee. She calmed him down and explained that it was the best way for them to remain together, and it looked like it worked. He was suddenly composed and submissive. At this moment, she knew that Ryan would never choose her. She was now a murderer. He didn't love her. He had already cheated on her with Lily. She couldn't trust him anymore. Ryan believed that Cassandra was trustworthy, and he thought that she still had some feelings for him. He decided to spend the night at her place, hoping to escape the reality of his situation and face it in the morning. However, Cassandra was more concerned about protecting herself and her reputation. She was hesitant to trust Ryan with the sensitive information, knowing that he was still a young and impulsive person who could potentially expose her secrets. As she pondered her next move, Cassandra concocted a plan to eliminate the risk that Ryan posed to her. She had always considered this option as a last resort, but now it seemed like the safest choice for her. She didn't want Ryan to see another sunrise, and she was determined to put an end to him. Cassandra refused to take Ryan home immediately. Instead, she got out of the car to buy some beers. When she returned, she was shocked to find that Ryan was no longer in the car. She panicked and searched everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. Just as she was starting to worry, Ryan suddenly opened the car door and got in. "Where were you?" Cassandra asked, trying to hide her relief. Ryan replied nonchalantly, "I had to take a pee. I don't feel like taking a drink. Just take me home." Cassandra's calm demeanor was a facade, as she had been planning to eliminate Ryan all along. She drove to a remote area where she strangled him, exhibiting a disturbing level of strength and skill. Ryan struggled, but he was no match for Cassandra's power, and he eventually succumbed to her attack. With Ryan's lifeless body in the trunk, Cassandra returned home, seemingly unfazed by the horrific act she had just committed. She then retrieved a shovel, determined to bury the body herself, as she couldn't trust anyone with such sensitive information. As she dug through the night, Cassandra's meticulous nature took over, ensuring that she left no evidence behind. However, in her haste, she lost an earring, which fell into the shallow grave. Unbeknownst to her, this small mistake would later become a crucial piece of evidence, tying her to the murder. For now, she had managed to cover her tracks, but the lost earring would remain, waiting to be discovered, and potentially bring her to justice. In the days following Ryan's disappearance, Cassandra played her role flawlessly. She supported Evelyn through the initial shock and grief, joining the search efforts and offering words of comfort. Being a trained detective, Cassandra did all she could to find Ryan, but it was all a facade. She led all the rescue teams far from the forest and always discovered false and fake clues to the wrong scene. Whenever someone was close to questioning his whereabouts on that night, she had something sweet to tell them. She directed suspicion toward Evelyn's estranged ex-husband, David, subtly planting the idea that his troubled past made him a likely suspect. Evelyn, desperate for answers, latched onto the suggestion. David was a junkie and a perfect culprit. Without a tight alibi for that night, he was arrested on circumstantial evidence, giving Cassandra the breathing room she needed to cover her tracks further. Marcus would soon grow suspicious of her symptoms, and so she terminated her pregnancy, erasing the final trace of her betrayal and ensuring her life remained intact. But how long would the truth art behind a murky shade of lies and betrayal? Only time will tell. Months passed, and Evelyn, broken by the loss of her son, struggled to find a way forward. She leaned on Cassandra, unaware that the person she trusted most was the one who had destroyed her world. But the truth, no matter how well hidden, has a way of coming to light, and for Cassandra, the time had come. Hikers stumbled upon the shallow grave during a heavy rainfall. At first, it seemed like uneven soil, a little rough and free of grass that covered the rest of the forest floor. But a toe stuck out. A toe with brightly polished red nail peeked underneath the uneven soil. Mortified, the hikers dug the ground, uncovering the remains of Ryan and Lily, and of course, the earring. Forensic analysis linked Cassandra's earring and the remains of her hair to the crime scene, unraveling the facade she had so carefully maintained. Investigators began piecing together the timeline of events, uncovering evidence of Cassandra's inappropriate relationship with Ryan. Her neighbors reported Ryan's countless night visits, and Jalen confessed to barely ever studying with Ryan overnight. Testimonies from Lily's friends further implicated her, revealing the motive behind the murders. When confronted with the evidence, Cassandra's mask finally slipped. The trusted detective, the loving friend, and the devoted mentor were gone, replaced by a manipulative predator whose actions had destroyed two families. The trial of Cassandra Moore was a highly publicized and dramatic event, with the media descending upon the courtroom to cover every detail. The community was shocked and saddened by the revelations that had led to the case, and the atmosphere was one of stunned disbelief. For Evelyn, the experience was particularly devastating. She had considered Cassandra a close friend, someone she had trusted implicitly, and the thought that this person could be capable of such a heinous crime was almost too much to bear. The fact that Cassandra had killed her own son, Ryan, and then gone to great lengths to cover up the crime was a senseless and horrific act that had left Evelyn reeling. As the trial progressed, the evidence against Cassandra mounted, and the reality of her actions became increasingly clear. The lost earring, which had been found in the shallow grave where Ryan's body was buried, was a crucial piece of evidence that tied Cassandra to the crime. The prosecution presented a compelling case, and in the end, Cassandra was found guilty of Ryan's murder. The court revealed the full extent of Cassandra's manipulation and deceit, leaving no doubt about her guilt. She had not only taken advantage of a minor, but also killed two kids to hide her shame. The verdict was met with a mix of emotions, from shock and sadness to outrage and anger. Evelyn, in particular, was overcome with grief, struggling to come to terms with the fact that her friend had been capable of such a terrible act. The trial had been a difficult and trying experience for everyone involved, but ultimately justice had been served, and Cassandra would have to face the consequences of her actions. Cassandra was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, her career, family, and reputation in ruins. Evelyn, unable to bear the weight of her grief and guilt, left the force. She relocated to a quiet town, dedicating her life to helping abused children and advocating for those who couldn't protect themselves. Cassandra Moore's story is a haunting reminder that perhaps trust and friendship are the strongest ingredient in every murder mystery, and all it takes to tip the scale, to flip into the darker end, is just a split second of weakness, a minute of yearning, a second of wanting the forbidden. Always remember that the ones we trust most could be the ones who dig our graves. As we reflect on the horrifying story of Cassandra Moore, we are reminded of the devastating consequences that arise from broken trust and the dangers of betrayal. The story of Cassandra, Evelyn, and Ryan is a chilling example of how deception can slowly unravel the fabric of our relationships, leading to darkness in the most unexpected places. What began as a friendship built on years of trust and shared experiences quickly descended into a web of manipulation, obsession, and ultimately, murder. Cassandra's actions shattered two families, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak, grief, and an unthinkable betrayal. Her role as a mentor, a figure of guidance and strength, was nothing more than a mask she wore to exploit the vulnerable. Ryan's trust in her, his belief that she understood him in ways his mother couldn't, ultimately led him into the grasp of someone capable of unspeakable harm. The tragic loss of Ryan and Lily serves as a painful reminder that even the most trusted figures can hide the darkest secrets. The emotional and physical scars left by Cassandra's betrayal will haunt those who loved her and those she destroyed. Yet, despite the darkness she inflicted, justice has prevailed. If this story has left you questioning the nature of trust and the lengths some will go to hide their shame, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more compelling true crime stories. Share your thoughts in the comments, and remember, trust is fragile, and sometimes the ones we trust most can be the ones who bring our downfall. Thank you for watching, and stay vigilant.